If you have trouble sleeping, it can affect your whole life, can't it? Whether you're having trouble nodding off at bedtime or whether you're just not getting enough rest, help is at hand. We're being assured. Sleep expert Joe Pannell joins us in the studio. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Lovely, thank you. It's wonderful to talk about sleep. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Brilliant.
Now, to be a specialist in this field, you must have had your own struggles with sleeping.
Yes, I had it for 20 years, 20 years of insomnia. Yeah, so a long time.
Yes, and I assume it affects everything, doesn't it? If you don't get a good night's sleep, it affects everything.
Yeah, so it's not. So insomnia, it's more than just not sleeping at night. So it's sort of a 24-hour condition. So it will, you start changing your behaviours in order to try and make yourself sleep. You become obsessed with sleep during the day. You start doing things to try and make yourself sleep at night. You start not doing things to start sleeping at night. And it permeates through your whole day.
So that's the extreme, isn't it? And you know, for people who just have trouble nodding off, I mean, I am terrible for lying in bed thinking, oh, crumbs, I've got to get up in. And then you count the hours and then you get fixated on that. And then all of a sudden you're focusing on the fact that you can't sleep. And that makes your mind busy, doesn't it?
So that's incredibly common. And an awareness of that, that's what sort of drives insomnia. So insomnia is really two things. It's behaviours and it's the anxiety and the worry and the stress around sleep. And so that anxiety you were talking about, so that causes a physiological change in the body. Your heart rate will increase, your body temperature, because your brain, you're telling your brain that there's something threatening to your safety. So it puts you alert in order to protect you, to keep you safe. So that's what the brain thinks going on there. So it is that anxiety and it is that stress that is a major part of what insomnia and sleep problems are. So
if somebody's listening to this and they do suffer with insomnia, is there one thing that triggers it, or could it be anything?
The trigger doesn't really matter. So my trigger was 20 years ago. So I was 14 when I first had it because of a hard time at school. But it's not really the trigger. You can have it for trigger from a stressful event. You can have ailments that have it. You can go through the menopause and have it. But the trigger isn't what causes that long-term chronic insomnia. It's the behaviours you do afterwards that that then perpetuates the problem. But the trigger doesn't matter at all. And that's actually quite a common thing people think. Well, if I can just go back in time and unpick that trigger to why I had insomnia, then it's going to go away. But the trigger doesn't matter because there's probably thousands of people that had a bad time at school. Most of them didn't develop insomnia.
That's quite reassuring for somebody who's thinking, why can't I sleep? What is wrong with me? It's got to have come from somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily need to be one thing.
It's your behaviours that you do afterwards, and it's your thought patterns around sleep that turns that into insomnia. So it is normally one thing, and it's nearly always your behaviours that you do in order to try and make yourself sleep.
Do you get to the point where you dread going to bed?
Yeah. So the bed becomes this really anxious, stressful, worrying place that you don't want to be in, because over the years you condition your brain, because you've laid in there awake for so long, you condition your brain that the bed is this stressful, anxious, horrible place to be.
Yeah.
But you convince yourself that you have to be there as long as you possibly can in order to try and make yourself sleep. So it's a horrible place you don't want to be in. But over the years, it's really typical with people who have insomnia to just increase the amount of time they spend in bed. So I, for instance, only need about 6.5 hours of sleep.
Okay.
But during my insomnia, because I convinced myself, most things in life, the harder you try and the longer you spend at it, the better chance it has of happening. So I convinced myself sleep was the same. So I'd spend 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And by the end, I was probably in bed for about 14 hours a day trying to sleep.
Goodness.
And it just, that drove insomnia. Yeah.
And so when you then have to get up and carry on with your day, when you've been up and about all night, effectively, does that then impact on relationships and friendships and work? Yeah,
so definitely. So during my insomnia, you kind of chips away at you as a person. So you feel you spend your whole night grappling with something that's incredibly hard, and then during the day you're not well rested as well, and then you become so kind of, your world narrows very much to your own personal struggle. So it does definitely impact my relationship. So I wouldn't say it was the only thing, but it did lead to a divorce. It wasn't the only thing but I stopped being myself as a person really because of it. So it does take a lot from you.
And it's I suppose, you say you only need 6.5 hours sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, we're told 8. We're told 8. So it's okay. We're not, nothing bad's going to happen to us if we don't have that full 8. Do some people need more than that?
Some people might need more. And that's a complete myth. 8 hours is a complete myth. So 7 hours is fairly typical, but it's like shoe size sleep. So if the average size of feet in the UK is 8.5 for men, but if they only manufactured shoes in that size, there'd be an awful lot of people walking around barefoot because sleep, it's a complete range. I've met people that only need 5 hours sleep, and they wake up absolutely fine on that. So really, it is a complete myth, that 8-1, and actually trying to get 8 hours of sleep when you don't need 8 hours of sleep just causes you to spend more and more time in bed trying to achieve something that you're not going to get, which leads to that anxiety, it leads to that stress.
And then you're more worn out.
And more worn out. So if you only need 6 and you wake up refreshed and happy and perfectly fine after 6, that's all you need. And that myth that keeps on getting perpetuates actually drives insomnia and is quite dangerous to people who are having trouble sleeping.
See, technology doesn't help either, does it? So I'm just thinking, my watch, I've got one of these fancy watches that says how many steps I've taken a day. It also tells me how much sleep I had. So last night I had 7 hours and 2 minutes of sleep. It's broken it down. And then it says, and this is what I get fixated on, that from that 7 hours, I was awake for 36 minutes. I was in a light sleep for 4.5 hours. I was only in a deep sleep for 48 minutes in the whole night. Does that mean I only had 48 minutes sleep? And then you panic, don't you? But this is technology. This is all stuff on your wrist, and then you overthink it.
So what I would say about sleep trackers is
take them off.
Because so what they use in a sleep lab will cost tens of thousands of pounds, and they'll literally glue electrodes onto your head in order to monitor your sleep. These things on your watch, they cost a fraction of the price, but not accurate. And actually what they do is they drive obsession, and they drive worry, and they drive the anxiety around sleep. So they're great for people that sell them, but in the majority of people who are having real trouble sleeping, who are becoming fixated and obsessed with their sleep, they are, again, something that's really damaging to sleep, but good for the manufacturers.
And when we talk about myths, when you talk about, the length of sleep, other myths that go with sleeping, old wives' tales, having a cup of hot milk, lying in bed counting sheep. Do any of those things work?
So there's loads of stuff around sleep. So there's, have a hot bath before you sleep. There's drink the warm milk. There's have a kiwi fruit before sleep. And some of these things have an evidence base to them, and some of them are complete wives' tale and have no evidence behind them. But really, none of these things are going to fix a long-term chronic sleep problem, because none of them get to the root cause of the sleep problem, which are always behaviours and anxiety and stress around sleep. So actually, if you're starting to have problems sleeping, and that's what you can then go, okay, well, I can only sleep if I have a warm bath, or I can only sleep if I have warm milk, and I can only sleep if I don't exercise before bed, if I don't drink any alcohol before bed. And suddenly you've got a laundry list of about 20, 30 different things that you're convinced will make you sleep. And actually, your body needs sleep, and it will get sleep when it needs it. But you will convince yourself, okay, well, I had a hot bath last night, so that's why I slept. And I didn't go to music last night, so I wasn't energized before bed, and that's why I slept well last night. And that is where the danger comes from. That's what drives insomnia. That's what perpetuates insomnia. And that makes it a lot worse.
Well, while we've got you here then, we need to obviously make the most of this. And have you got a couple of tips that you can give us? So if somebody's listening at the moment and thinking, my goodness, this is my life, he's explaining me, what can we do to try and sleep better?
So really we're looking at, if you've got a long-term chronic sleep problem, you've got serious insomnia, CBTi, so cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, is the gold standard treatment. So that's what's really going to help with your insomnia, and my book as well.
Oh, lovely.
And so that is, if you've got a serious problem, look into that. Just for general everyone else, this will prevent anyone from ever getting insomnia, and it will also help everyone who occasionally has that poor nights of sleep. So go to bed when you can't keep your eyes open sleepy, because setting yourself a fixed bedtime is another sleep myth. It's absolute nonsense, because sleep is a drive state. So in the same way someone has a drive to drink when they feel thirsty, they also have a drive to sleep when they feel sleepy. So if you go to bed when you're not feeling sleepy, you just lie there and you do what you were saying earlier and just get stressed and anxious and worried about sleep. And because there's that 8-hour sleep myth where you think you need 8 hours of sleep, you go, okay, well, it's now midnight, I've got to get up at 8 o'clock, I need 8 hours of sleep, so I'm going to go to bed at midnight. You may only need 6 hours of sleep, and so you're going to spend 2 hours in bed not sleeping because you only need 6 hours. You're asking the body to give you 8, and you're going to lie in bed for 2 hours stressed and anxious and not asleep, and actually might sleep less because you're in that hyper-aroused, that anxious state. Your body thinks it's under threat, and then you're going to sleep at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. So go to bed when you can't keep your eyes open sleepy. Get up at the same time every single day. That's the most important piece of advice I can give everyone, because the only thing that produces sleep is wakefulness. So if someone needs 17 hours of wakefulness to produce 7 hours of sleep, if they were to wake up at, say, their usual time of 7 a.m., they're going to start feeling sleepy at around about midnight after 17 hours. But if they were to wake up instead at 10, they're going to start feeling sleepy the next night at 3 a.m. So it's really important to fix and anchor your wake time. I mean, that's a bit of an oversimplification because there's other things going on like sleep quality, but simply put, sleep is produced by wakefulness, and anchoring that wake time is the most important thing you can do. Get light first thing in the morning, bright as you possibly can. And if you are going down the route of struggling to sleep, it's really common to have sleep problems, short-term sleep problems. It's really common to experience that. The danger is when you start changing your behaviours and start adapting what you do. The other tip is to get a copy of my book.
Cheeky. Go on then, tell us.
You Can Sleep Too is the name of my book. And also I work for the sleep charity as well. So they have a free phone number as well.
Okay. So for you personally then, are you better now? Do you feel better? 20 years of insomnia.
Yeah.
How are you personally now?
Amazing now. Really good. So it's completely changed my life. So it was a CBTi course which cured my insomnia. And insomnia, it took a lot from me. Divorce, depression, I basically stopped being me as a person. Without it, it's completely different person.
Well, hopefully
entirely.
we can help somebody else listening to this now as well. You mentioned the charity too. What's the best course of action if we're taking our first step? Is there a phone number or a website to look at a bit more?
So they've got the sleep charity. So they used to be called the Children's Sleep Charity. They've also got a free helpline on their website which you can look up. So I work on that helpline as well. I can't guarantee you'll get me because they got other people on it as well. But the sleep charity, so they've got loads of evidence-based sleep advice on there. And for everyone else, so the sleep charity is a great resource for that. For everyone else, if you Google CBTi, again, there's a lot of bad CBTi out there as well that will tell you to set a fixed bedtime. So Google CBTi, and if it says go to bed when you're sleepy, then you know you're on the right path there. Basically, if you've got trouble sleeping, find some good stuff and don't go down the route of weighted blankets and homeopathy because it's
Joe,
going to drive your insomnia.
Thank you so much for coming in today, and hopefully we'll have helped somebody else with their sleep too.
Can I be naughty again and mention my book one more time?
One more time. Look, the boss is in. I shall be told off for this. Go on, one more time.
You Can Sleep Too, and if you can find that on Amazon, and it's an absolute corker.
Joe, thank you for your time today.
Your truly local station.
Loving North Devon. The Voice.